2-0. The Celtics win Game 2 against the Hawks team that just don't appear to have it in this series. We're going to talk future Finals MVP Derrick White. We've got Jaylen Handwatch, Tatum cruising to a solid stat line, and what's going on with our closest rivals. Next on First to the Floor.
Who's going to be first to the floor here? And it was Marcus Smart, as he usually is.
Brown drives, layup on the glass.
It's not the first time we've seen a superstar in Derrick White sacrifice the body.
Welcome in to another episode of First to the Floor. Ben Vallis here. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well, which, if you're like me and your mood completely hinges on the success of the Celtics, you're probably doing all right. Joining us on this one, Jackson Bauer, a.k.a. Rickman Lives. Jackson, what's going on, man? Welcome back.
Oh man, nothing but good stuff, as I think we're all aware. I'm stoked to bask in Trey Young's misery.
Yes, yeah, we're here with the good vibes, and of course, the man with the mistress, the dalliance with the mistress, really paying dividends at this moment. It's Jake Eisenberg. Jake, how you doing, sir?
Jeez, it feels like we're in the honeymoon phase with how carefree and
you've gone public.
Yeah, exactly. Good times. Yeah, this is a completely we're polyamorous at this point. Like, and everybody's on board.
I love it. The relationship is maturing before our very eyes. Look, let's just talk very briefly, getting straight into Game 2, about what the Celtics did to win this particular game, and then we'll get on to individual performances, because I think the individual performances at this point just they carry a bit more weight. They're a bit more fun to talk about, given the total team dominance the Celtics have shown so far in this series. Jackson, just briefly, how did the Celtics win Game 2? I mean, it was a similar story to Game 1, but what did you see from the Celts to pull this one out?
Well, we didn't relax when we had a lead, even though, they chipped a 20-point lead down to 9, which feels nowhere near as terminal as a 32 down to 12. I think it was just more of the same. Hunt those mismatches. On paper, we are the far superior team, talent-wise, experience-wise, and this game is playing out precisely like it's on paper. You know what I mean? I think the only way this goes wrong is if we become our own worst enemy and we shoot ourselves in the foot. But man, it's just threes, it's attacking mismatches, it's ball movement. It's just what we hoped we would see from the guys. And it doesn't look like it's going to go awry anytime soon, despite maybe what we've gotten used to in the regular season. But this is just we were stoked when we got this matchup, and it's basically playing out exactly as I imagined. Do you guys feel the same way?
Yeah, this is why I was sweating out the Atlanta-Miami game, because I was so confident that this matchup is just perfect. Like, finally, this could not feel more different to last year's first round. Like, I know we swept last season, but I was shitting bricks going into games 1.
Same, yeah.
At game 2. Like, we were down 17 to the Nets in Game 2 of the first round. And Game 3 was close. Game 4 was like, everyone was like a nail biter. This is not last year.
No.
Not at all. Like, this is perfect. This is literally perfect. This is why you play hard to get a set. This is a normal 7-2 matchup. It's great. And it doesn't feel like there's a lot of them in this year's playoffs.
No. And it just feels like we've come into our first playoff series just with a good slice of luck. You know what I mean? Like, we could have had the Heat matchup, and it could have been awful. Even the Brooklyn matchup, as lighter work as the Sixers are making of that, like, we just landed with the perfect opponent, and nothing has gone pear shaped yet. But yeah, it just feels like it's last year's playoffs was just, it was hurdle after hurdle after hurdle, and they all meant something too. Beating Kyrie, beating the defending champions, beating teams that have put us out in the finals. Whereas this is just like here you go, here's kindergarten level challenge. Get past that, then we can talk about how we're going to test you further in the future. That's how it seems to me.
The simplest road, finally. Like, we've done the hardest road time and time again. That's what every series was last year. And that sweep last year in the first round, the tightest sweep of all time. Like, the most stressful games, 1 through 4. Like that Tatum game winner in the first, and then being down 17 and taking basically Peyton Pritchard to come in. We're not going to see any Peyton Pritchard minutes. He's not going to save us in this
Nope.
postseason. So
No one, there's no one to save, so we don't need him.
Yeah, that's right. Thankfully. But in this game 2, I guess we could say the Hawks did a little bit better, right? Like they came out hot,
did a
they
lot
came
better.
out aggressive. 101 field goal attempts for the Hawks versus our 86. But the Hawks, the efficiency was just not there. So true shooting and effective field goal percentage for the Hawks, about 50% each for both of those stats. And for the Celtics, with their 15 less field goal attempts, 65% true shooting, 65% effective field goal percentage. So just like walking into a victory there in terms of the shot quality and the efficiency and their shooting. And yeah, we'll take 16 less shots. It doesn't matter because we're going to hit them. They come easy to us. And our guys put themselves in a position where like the shot attempts that they're taking are more likely to go down. The shot quality is way up against the Hawks.
Yeah, you got to be pretty worried if you're a Hawks fan. Like, if you get that many more shots, and it was honestly the only reason this wasn't another 30-point blowout was because DeJounte Murray just hit like 5 pull-up contested threes. And he's just a guy that doesn't do that. And honestly, it may have been a good thing. I was like, okay, the Hawks came out good. The Celtics were down 10 in the first quarter for a little while, and then DeJounte made a bit of a run. I was like, the Celtics are maybe the best team in history with either like up anywhere between 6 to 12, because you don't think you're ahead. As soon as the lead gets to 20, that's when bad things start to happen. But this team with a lead of 6 to 12, 95 Bulls, like this unstoppable. And DeJounte kind of kept us locked in. It felt like it was like, okay, well, we have to keep playing the right way because maybe we can lose. It may have, maybe that's the only way to beat the Celtics. It feels like right now, it's like spot them 26, and then you might be able to come back because they'll like forget how to play basketball for 2 hours.
Dude, when we had a deficit of 11, I was like, Hawks, bros, like, you guys are fucked. Like, you put yourself, like, it's the complete antithesis of beware the early lead. It's, it's like, you guys are really causing trouble for yourselves because you're going to bring the worst out of the Celtics as far as like, your winning chances are concerned. And, the Celtics intensity, it was not there early. Like, they're not taking the opponent seriously. They probably are going to have to dial that up a little bit now, playing on the road, even though it's basically a home game for Malcolm Brogdon and Jaylen Brown there in Atlanta. But offensive rebounds, turnovers are probably the two like knocks on the Celtics, just at that surface level as far as like what they could clean up. Jaylen Brown, particularly in the first quarter, crazy errant pass, and then the double dribble, like rec league kind of shit there. But then Brogdon, Rob Williams, the Time Lord, they check in first quarter with 6 minutes and 30 seconds to go. Cue a 17-3 run to end the first quarter, which it ended in a Derrick White block and then a near half-court buzzer beater by our mate Brugger, Malcolm Brogdon. And then like before all of that, even like Rob checks in and he's like getting himself into the paint, sealing like on fast breaks, in transition, he's getting into the paint, sealing himself off in the paint and like calling for the ball. And just crazy high success rate on those looks for Rob Williams. Like, that's new, but he's healthy, and he's got so many mismatches in his favor against this particular team that that's an exciting look for Rob.
I think everybody's writing this series off because the Celtics are dominating by so much, which is fair. But I think also people are forgetting, like, the Hawks are 7th best offense in the NBA over the whole season. The Celtics have the best defense in the playoffs so far. Obviously, it's 2 games. That defense has gone to a new level, but it feels like the Celtics are flying under the radar right now, as they should be, really. Like, who cares about the Hawks? But, like, they are playing at this level, and part of that's the Hawks, but the defense specifically is playing at a level that I don't think people are taking properly seriously. I think people are like, oh yeah, the Celtics are good on defense again, 2nd in the league, yada yada. But if you're really paying attention, it wasn't the same as last year, and it kind of feels like it's back. There was that play that was going around where he was late. John Collins had the ball under the rim. Rob and Al just like swallowed him up, rejected it, and you've got Joe Mazzulla's only real like emotion that we've seen this season is he like does like this like double fist bump flex motion on the sideline, like getting hyped up about the defense. And yeah, like it doesn't matter because the Celtics are going to win anyway. But like if you're really paying attention, I think it's a pretty big deal that they're kind of just swallowing people up like on a really good offense.
Yeah, what do you think about the defense there for the Celtics, Jackson? Because like it's clearly stepped up in the playoffs, and yes, like you have to the caveat obviously being that it is the Hawks. But like Jake mentioned, I think 7th best offense since the All-Star break. They have been solid offensively, and yet like Trae Young is just in the Derrick White torture chamber on both ends of the court at the moment, which we'll get into more a little bit later. But what are you seeing defensively from the Celtics?
This team clearly has a switch, and the switch flip probably happened somewhere in the last like couple of games of the regular season. Probably the Milwaukee annihilation was probably the moment there. So like, yeah, you see a lot more of the Udoka defense, the kind of team that we were in the back half of last year and through to the playoffs. You know, the guard rotation, like defensively, is just an embarrassment of riches, of torture chamber riches. And then you get to the front court, and you've got, you know, Rob Williams who blocks shots for breakfast, Al Horford who is like, you know, can handle himself as well, and then we haven't even mentioned Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. So like on paper, it is like you can barely get anything from this defense, you know, even on the worst of days. But then you consider like the personnel that the Hawks have, particularly when they play, you know, Trae Young, and 7th best offense is just like, it looks so horribly lost compared to what we've got. And it's great. And I think a lot of it just comes down to, I know the Hawks have a little bit of playoff pedigree. I know they had that run where they got to, you know, the finals, or the East Conference Finals rather, a couple years back, but they just don't look like versed at like as a playoff team. And I think a lot of that probably has to do with Quinn Snyder coming in and only just being there like you know, for a month or so. I'll bet you any money that Quinn Snyder is when he's sitting there pacing around making adjustments, he's thinking, how do I get this team competitive, and what moves we have to make to be good next season? This is just gone for him. He is just assessing guys out there as like, who of these dudes out here can help me next season and can push us forward, because this series is just a wash. And I think he realizes that. And yeah, and that's evidenced by, you know, this 7th best defense being utterly, you know, choked to bits by the guys that we have. Like, we would have held them under 100 again if we didn't give up. I think, like, you know, what was it, a 7 or 9 nothing run, like right at the end there, once we had given up. So yeah, it's even like better than it seems on paper. So no, the defense is back as far as I can tell.
I think Quinn Snyder's on the sideline wondering how much he can get in a Trae Young trade. That's what he's thinking, because the Hawks have looked the best with Trae Young on the bench, and it's not.
They have.
Do you want to unpack that? Like, do we want to go into what the Hawks could get for Trae Young? Because I'm sure it's
not much.
No,
like literally. So I was listening to Simmons and Haralabob today, and he brought up like Simmons isn't even talking about the Celtics really. It's funny, like anyone that he has on is like, yeah, the Celtics are really good. Haralabob picked the Celtics to win the finals, and Bill's like, yeah, I've been saying this all year. It's like, no, you haven't.
So frustrating. He won't entertain it.
His Celtics analysis has been a disaster this year.
I think he's got a bit of the whole, like, don't want to jinx it because everything I say can be used against me, because he has a terrible selfie take. I kind of hold on to that personally for like a week and a half. He's like, fucking Simmons, we'll show you. And it's like, this guy has been watching the Celtics since, like, you know, the 70s. So I think he just has that weird superstition that we all seem to share. It's like, I can't speak into existence because they'll bite me in the ass. So I get it to a degree, but yeah, you're right. It's just, it's being played off like it's completely anonymous.
Like, and I thought the same thing. I was like, who can you actually trade for Trae Young? Because like all of the kind of tanking teams or teams kind of at the bottom, like the Magic's not trading for him, the Pistons, no, the Rockets make no sense. Like, there's not really a lot of teams. And I was like, Bradley Beal makes sense. And then literally like 3 seconds later, that's what Simmons goes, who says no first to a Bradley Beal Trae Young trade? And I was like, I think the Hawks say no. And then Haralabob like, I think the Wizards say no. So that's where everybody's kind of at with Trae Young right now. But like, what do you do if he is not going to be an elite shooter and not be able to play off the ball and be literally the worst defender that plays real minutes in the NBA. Like, what are you? Like, you got to the conference finals in a COVID anomaly season, and conference finals runs just randomly happen. Blazers got there randomly. The Nuggets was kind of random. The Mavericks last year, now they're out of the playoffs. Like, the Celtics, the fact that they've gone to the this deep is like so many times with their best players so young is always going to be one of the more underrated things. But like, it's not looking good.
You want to know where I think Trae Young would work really well? The 2016-17 Celtics. Brad Stevens, take out Isaiah Thomas, put Trae Young in there, put him in a Brad Stevens system. I reckon he'd look good. Well, still terrible. You still have to hide him on defense, and I'm sure he's not going to play with a dislocated hip after like a family member dies. I don't think.
I'll settle down, Enos Freedom.
He will, but you're right. You're right. I feel bad for him, to be perfectly honest. I don't think anyone in the NBA fan base likes him. I don't think his fans like him. I don't think his teammates like him. I think his coach is thinking about the ways to ditch him all of a sudden. I gotta feel bad, and it's peak arrogance because I know this series is not over. You could have like 45 and 20 assists in the next game, but it still won't matter. Like his stock is so damaged from this. I'm starting to pity him a little bit.
Well, they say like the series doesn't start until a team wins on the road, right? So like technically the series hasn't started, but it really.
So we'll start playing like game 3 next round. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, it really encapsulates the vibe of the series. That really the main discourse has been like, where are we trading Trae Young to? Like the whole series, it's like not about like how good the Celtics are, how good the defense has been against a recent top 7 offense. Just like where's Trae Young getting traded to? Because that's how fucking bad they've been. But
how good we've been. That's why it's interesting that everybody's gone that way, as opposed to like people are obviously acknowledging the Celtics are good. But it's like, we're making Trae Young look like he should be playing for the Beijing Sharks. It's like, okay, well, he was a top ball handler on the 7th best offense. I'm sure it has nothing to do with the Celtics.
Yeah, and he has, like, from time to time, not so much this particular season, but in the past, shredded us in the pick and roll. And I think the Celtics pick and roll defense, particularly with Al Horford in drop, has been really good so far this series. So Al Horford in drop, and then Derrick White really solid, chasing Trae around those screens. We anointed him the best screen navigator on the team earlier in the season on a podcast when we were nerding out about little things like that. Trae Young comes around a screen, and then Derrick White is like already on his hip. He chases him around. He's already on his hip, and then Al Horford is in drop, but he's shallower in his drops than he was in the regular season. Like, this is playoff Al, the modern day version, the 36-year-old version of playoff Al, where yes, he's in drop, but he's like up closer to the ball handler while still in drop. Not, in any way like Brook Lopez, who drops all the way to the rim, even still in the playoffs. I was watching that Heat game today. But yeah, our drop defense has been really, really solid. And then, conversely, Capella spending more time guarding around the rim in this game. Like, clearly there was an emphasis for the Hawks to guard the rim, I think, initially. And then I think Al Horford hit a 3. Capella came out and was like, okay, like, I've got to guard. They're playing 5 out. I've got to get out of here. And then as soon as he did that, the very next possession, Jason Tatum got straight downhill for a layup. And that sort of roughly coincided with the massive run that was started in the second half of the first quarter. And then it was over. So, like, to go back from the beginning of this conversation, yes, the Hawks did slightly better for slightly longer, like seconds longer earlier in the game. And then they were just completely discombobulated. Like, okay, like, great, let's defend the rim. But also they've got 5 shit-hot 3-point shooters out there on the court right now. Like, we can't really just defend the rim. We actually have to get out to these guys. And all of a sudden, we don't know what the fuck we're doing. And all of a sudden, our 11-point lead or whatever it was has flipped into like a 15-point deficit. And that was it. And then, yes, like, we let him get back to within 8 or whatever it was. But compared to game 1, like, was there any panic for you guys? Like, Jackson, when the Hawks got it down to 8 or whatever, at any point were you like, oh shit, like, we're gonna lose this game? Or were you just like, whatever, like, we'll just...
No, man, maximum anxiety I had was like right at the end of the third quarter, which happened to coincide, I think, with a Bogdanovich 3, which cut it to 9 when Rob Williams took a hit in the face and he was down for a second. That was when I was like, please God, no, this is like, it's too good. Don't do this to me now. And then they took a timeout and he was up and he just sort of like shook his nose. So he's fine. So no, I was never concerned for a second. I was way more concerned on the playback stream when they got it down to 12 in game one. That was like anxiety level, like 6.5, 7. The max it got in this game was probably like a 4. It just never felt in doubt, to be honest.
Yeah. Which is that's a us/you problem. Like it should never even been close to a 4.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to admit it now.
No, it isn't the playoffs.
Should have been a 1.
It's my bad influence on the rest of the podcast team, the rest of the first of the 14. Unfortunately, Celtics, 74% of the Celtics shots were either threes or right at the rim, which is an insanely healthy shot diet. Just 26% from mid-range, and I think it was 0% per cleaning the glass from a long mid-range. So, like, the clear signs of a healthy offense. And yes, the Hawks defense, they're not necessarily going to test this, but their worst is so much better than our worst that, like, we can play poorly. And like Joe has said it in his post-game interviews, like there's so much that we could be doing better. And like I don't necessarily subscribe to like we're developing bad habits in this series and that's going to shoot us in the foot next series. Like I think we're just like kind of like how I approach my working life, like just doing the bare minimum to get by, right? And we'll worry about the challenge when it comes up. But, you know, they are, like, when you look at that shot diet there, like, their approach is at least correct, even if their effort level is, like, clearly dialed back a little bit. So it's just nice, like, to have a series that really just favors us in all facets. It's just, it's a calming thing compared to last year.
It is
for
nice.
Sure.
Don't take it for granted because I've been starting to obviously think about the next round.
It's going to get worse.
It's going to be terrifying very quickly. Or not. Who knows? Maybe we'll just fucking roll them.
What can the Hawks do? I mean, we have to talk. We have to ask this question because the series is ongoing. Jake, what can the Hawks do better? For example, they trotted out a small ball lineup in the fourth quarter, like late in the game, and they had some success with that until the Celtics were like, "Oh, that's a thing. Okay, let's adjust. Let's get to the rim more," which they did to great success. But no Capella. Maybe a good thing for the Hawks going forward, and maybe playing small ball is maybe a better option for them. What else do you think that the Hawks can do to salvage this postseason?
And this is not a joke. Like it literally is just play Trae Young less. Like he cannot play in this series because their only chance is to try and slow the Celtics offense down in some way. Like how can they get stops? And right now, if he's on the court, then there's just not going to be they can't stop the flow of buckets. It's a bucket waterfall. It's overflowing with buckets. Like the bucket's overflowing with buckets. The waterfall is made of buckets when you're playing the Atlanta Hawks. and Trae Young's out there. And so it's like if you go DeJounte, Sadiq Bey, Bogdanovic, Hunter, and Okongwu, that's a much better lineup to close than with Trae Young out there because they can still spread the floor. Like DeJounte and Trae Young, like they're not doing anything off the ball anyway. So like it almost gives you an out when they're on the court at the same time because they don't move. It's like Howes is more of a threat, but like as soon as Trae Young relinquishes the ball, Howes is a better player than him in literally every facet of the game. Just pretty bad. Pretty bad.
Yeah. Jackson, any thoughts? Like, can the Hawks snag a game here? I feel like at this point it would feel like a massive nuisance and annoying if the Hawks were to snag, just to prolong the inevitable.
Yeah, we've shat on the Hawks quite a bit in the opening 20 minutes here.
We'll continue to do so.
Yeah, my fake answer is just give us a 25-point lead in the first quarter, and then
honestly,
not
a bad call.
hope we just fall asleep, and then by the time we wake up, it's like a 1-point game, and all the momentum was with them. I expect further to my point earlier about Quinn Snyder like prioritizing like next season as opposed to this series. He might just throw some absolutely oddball lineups at us that might just catch us off guard. You're going to have one of the dudes on that team just randomly like pop off for like 25, 30. Like maybe John Collins like remembers the form that he had like at the start of like last year and, can put up like 25 or something. I don't see how they do it. Again, it's literally going, we will beat ourselves before they beat us. And I expect one of the next 2 games to actually be close. And I'm going to relish it because it's like, okay, now it's it's either the death blow or it's like the or it's like it's you know what I'm trying to say, right? A little bit of some stakes, some execution in the clutch that we have to go through and get our reps through here. And in a close game like that, you never know. Maybe Trae Young does just hit some threes in the 4th, and then he believes in his own hype again, and then we gentlemen sweep it. I really don't mind as long as we get through this healthy and we just continue to stick to our principles. I don't see them winning. The Hawks have to just get as creative and as oddball and just hope we take our foot off the gas. That's really the only way that I can see them taking the game.
If the Celtics defense doesn't turn up, that would be something like that. They need to come to the defense needs to come to play because this Atlanta team can open it up. And so if you don't keep playing the way you're playing on defense, then that is how they win a game at home. Because the crowd will be into it for this, but the crowd will be also ready to give up, just like the rest of the Hawks. So just play hard for a half, and it's probably over.
I'd be really interested to see the Game 4 crowd if the Celtics win Game 3 in Atlanta by 20. Who's going to that game? We've got to give a shout out.
They'll fly us out.
That'd be nice. We've got to give a shout out to Thomas Myers, the goat
Thomas.
in the chat for this particular podcast. We don't normally stream at this time, so it's interesting to see who surfaces. But Thomas says in the chat, Trey should look into if Cancun has a pro basketball team so he can just go and stay there. Which is probably fair enough. Guys, we should move on to individual performances. I think we understand the team versus team dynamic and why the Celtics are so much better than the Hawks on all fronts. Jake, I'll go to you here. If you were to highlight one particular player's individual performance in this game and the first game, who would that be?
It's not even a joke anymore. Derrick White, dude.
Yes.
He is playing at such an absurd level. He's gone from the mistress to we're going to adopt the child by the end of this playoffs. If things start going this way together. He's averaging 25, 6, and 5 over 2 games, which is obviously all NBA level numbers on 60% true shooting and on very low usage. So where is his usage? I had it up here earlier. I think it's at 21% usage, which is just standard role player, dude. He is being so efficient with, obviously he's shooting 50% from 3 and 90% from the line. So that's bumping his true shooting and stuff, but he's just getting so much done in such little touches and time with the ball in his hands. And which is why we love Derrick White, because he's such a quick decision maker. And it's been cool. You get to the playoffs, you get kind of more media stuff. And we got the Derrick White podium game. And it's cool getting the little tidbit of asking Derrick about being more confident, more assertive. And Jaylen's apparently been in Derrick's ear, being like, come on, D, go do you. Do your thing. And it's yeah, go do your thing. Because when all the gravity is towards Jaylen and Jason, he's a really skilled offensive player that can score literally at all 3 levels. And in this specific matchup, especially, he can go off. It's kind of ridiculous. Second in the league in blocks per game as well. When you look at the playoff numbers,
that's crazy. Is that the guards or all players?
It's all players. Al Horford's also tied for second. 2.5.
So good.
Yeah.
Jackson, thoughts on Derrick White? Because this could just be the Derrick White podcast. We could just stay up all night. We could stay up till midnight talking about Derrick White.
I would love to, man. I love me some Buffalo. The real answer is Derrick White for sure. But I think it just has to be mentioned that even though his minutes aren't, vital. They're obviously vital minutes, but I can't remember the last time I've seen Rob Time Lord look this healthy and this effective and this aggressive. There's still the moments where he'll take the rebound, he'll come down and his feet will sort of get a little bit twisted and he'll jerk himself in a way and he
jerk yourself, Rob.
Jerk himself in the best way, but without doing damage to yourself. And yeah, like I said, when he took the shot in the face the other day, there was a lot of innuendo creeping in here. But anyway, yeah, man, I'm so pleased that like we're getting to see like kind of like peak Robert Williams again, and it's coming at like just the right time. There we go again. I would say Robert Williams, please get off me before this deteriorates further.
Make it through a segment without a jizz joke, I think, is the challenge for Jackson for the rest of the show.
Can't promise anything.
Yeah, I talked about the Time Lord before, just about how he checked in halfway through the first quarter with Brogger, and like that was it. And it was those seals in the paint and just the demanding of the ball, which we'd heard like towards the end of the regular season, right? That Joe was encouraging Rob Williams to be more assertive offensively. And we saw it. I think it's probably just mismatch related. Like, obviously, we're not going to see him sealing off Joel Embiid in the second round. No. But like he's taking advantage of the clear mismatches in this round, which is fantastic. I do have to circle back on Derrick White because he has just been so good. And in this particular game, I've got the box score here: 11 of 16 from the field of 26 points, 7 boards, 2 assists, 3 blocks, 40% from 3. The 3-point shooting for the Celtics, I think it was 45%, 45.5% in this game. Like we're hitting our threes, which is fantastic. But just as far as like who could we recruit who would become the world's leading expert in benefiting from the gravity that shifts towards the Jays? And Derrick White is like clearly put his hand up, being like, "It's me. I'm that guy. Like you had me last year. I've had an off season to like watch film and develop and work with the coaching staff and work with the Jays, and like I'm here to say that like I'm your guy as far as like who's going to do all the work when the defense is shifting towards the Jays." He's doing such a good job of that. Could he be this caliber of a player on his own team as the marquee guy? Like probably not. But he's so good at like filling in the seams left by defenses shifting towards the Jays. It's so good to see. And Brogger is quite good at that. Smart is good in his own way as far as like conducting the orchestra, and we'll get to Smart in a little bit. But to see Derrick White play the way that he's playing right now off the Jays, it's like I won't say it. I'll just allude to it, but it's like championship-y, kind of like that's what you need.
Again, it's like flying under the radar because it's the Hawks, but this has been he's been playing kind of like at this, not at this level of production, but at this level of consistency and this impact the whole year. And when Marcus went down, this is kind of what we saw was Derrick taking the reins and going to another level. And like Derrick's averaging 36 minutes a game in the first 2 games. Marcus is at like 32 and Bogdan's at 38. We don't need to get into a whole Marcus Derrick thing, but like this, like the level that Derrick's playing at is like literally all-star level impact. And you look at the championship run that Middleton, Giannis, and Drew Holiday went on. Middleton went to a new level, and like you look at and Drew Holiday was so good. Like every year, there's a team and there's a player on that team that goes on a run. Like Fred VanVleet, comes to mind for the Raptors run, where he just went nuclear for like 2.5 rounds. And I think it's different because Derrick White's not going to, you don't need him to maybe hit 7 threes a game, but like what he's doing right now, he's flying under the radar. And if he continues this level of play, like people are just going to be continually underrating how good the Celtics are, because they just think of the Celtics as, yeah, Derrick White's good, the Jays are the Jays, but they're not accounting for how much better Derrick White is compared to the last season's playoff run. And then Jackson, if you want to go to the Rob next, like we didn't get Rob at all really in the playoffs. We got him like in tiny little bits and pieces coming off the meniscus injury. And what he's doing right now, like these vacuum go gadget arms on offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds, catching them on seals. Like if he's playing in the non-Embiid minutes, which I expect that to be like his main job, anytime Embiid's off the court, it's Rob time. Because when Al Horford's on, that means you're spreading him out more and making his life more difficult. And he can steal B-ball Paul. B-ball Paul's like 6'9". I know Rob's 6'9", but he's a 7'6" wingspan. Like that's a problem. And so those two elements that they didn't have last season, I think it's for whatever reason, I think people are sleeping on.
For sure.
Facts, my dog.
Facts, my dog. Jason Tatum as well had like the quietest, like dominant game I can remember in short term for Tatum. 5 of 9 from 3, I think, is maybe one of the main takeaways. The fact that, he hit 5 threes and his threes are going down at like that sort of old familiar rate that, all season they were going down way below expectations, right? He was jacking up all these threes. They weren't hitting. Suddenly, like, they seem to be hitting in the playoffs. And, some of that credit to the Hawks defense, or lack thereof, if you will. But the fact that, like, he's hitting his shot with more confidence, he took 9 of them. That's quite a high volume of threes, even for Jason Tatum. Hit 5. And then, he's passing. I think he had 6 assists in this game. He's really sort of maestroing the offense. And, like, Jake, correct me if I'm wrong here, but, like, sort of almost in a sense that he's, like, saving himself physically for future series, obviously against the Sixers coming up. What do you think? Like, do you think he's kind of half-assing it a little bit while still dominating?
Yeah, he's definitely saving himself. He's got the promise ring on. He's just, he's just cruising right now. It's crazy. Like, he's putting up 27 at 9 and 5 over the first 2 games. Yeah. And I know we have some rotation questions later, but like these are some very light minutes. Like, these are the very, very light 40 minutes for Tatum specifically. He looks good on defense. He's got command of the offense, picking his spots. He looks very fresh, very energized. The 2 days rest between games after the week off, like, yeah, he looks really, really good, and it doesn't look like he's really trying.
No,
very
he
hard.
doesn't need to.
No.
Do you remember once upon a time we were like maybe not criticizing Tatum's game, but we were like, man, he's just got to learn to deal with double teams. They'll send doubles to him and he can't really pass out of them and stuff. As soon as he takes that leap, he's going to be big time. Well, guess what? Like, I don't know, like, when it clicked or if it's just been a gradual progression, but like, they throw doubles at him and it's like no problem anymore. Like, case in point, that Al Horford cross-court pass, absolute Da Vinci level of art that was. But like, and I remember throughout the season, like, I know it didn't end the way we wanted it to, but the Jazz game, the one in Utah, the Grant Williams ending, I remember Will Hardy was just making them just throw doubles at him like all throughout the first quarter, and he was just literally like easily just throwing it to whoever was open, and the threes were going in. We built ourselves a nice lead in that game before it all went to shit. But it's almost like unbeknownst to me, or just sort of like just over time, he's become so good at dealing with those double teams and finding his teammates. And obviously, when everyone on the team shoots threes at a high chip, it's going to look it's going to look fantastic. But yeah, Tatum he's dealing with that pressure. He's dealing with like being the leader, being the guy. It might sound silly, and I know we're going to talk about his shoes later on, but like when you've just like launched your shoes and you're the face of like the franchise and people expect you to be there, like if he crumbled, like can you just imagine the memes? Like, oh yeah, no one's going to buy these. Oh God, finals Tatum has arrived early, blah, blah, blah. This is none of that. You know what I mean? It's a quiet, efficient, dominant performance from a guy who is still young as shit, but has had that many playoff reps, and he just looks composed and in control of everything that he does. And like I said, we haven't even seen him go up to like the gears that he needed to in the past to be this dominant. Like you do start to get carried away with it a little bit, and you're thinking about like what the rest of this playoff run's going to look like, just because of how easy it appears to be coming to him. But he's handling it like such a boss. And no matter how good Derrick White plays, Rob Williams plays, Jaylen Brown plays, etc., this is still Tatum's team, and there's a lot of pressure that comes with that, and it doesn't look like it's bothering him like one bit.
Well, that's what's awesome. Yeah, go on, Ben.
Well, Philly don't have the wing defenders either, and then if Derrick White is going to continue to make a name for himself, like how does that influence the Philly defense or the Milwaukee defense, and what effect does that have on opening up opportunities for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown? So it's all these spicy things percolating just based on the relative dominance of our role players, which is, it sounds weird to say, like Derrick White has been so good, but yet he is a role player who plays a role in this team. It's just going to open up opportunities for the Jays going forward. So you pair that with the lack of wing and defense that the Sixers have, if we are lucky enough to progress, which I think we might be, then yeah, it really, the worry is very much in the Sixers corner, I think, at this point, and for their very, very annoying fans. Can I get my JT1 review just out of the way, seeing as we're talking
quick.
about...
Smash it out.
Please, because I have a pair on the way, and I need to know if I made a mistake or not.
So they arrived 2 days ago, and tonight I played ball, and I put them on, and like every team that you're on, right? Like you play like rec league and whatever, every team has like a guy, like the guy who scores most of your buckets, like they just have a nose for buckets. For us tonight, that guy was away. He was like sick or unavaiilable, whatever, so he didn't show up. And so I'm kind of like our 1A, like, if he's double teamed or whatever, like they'll go to me. And so tonight,
Jaylen,
I was the
Tatum
guy.
was on some rest. Jaylen was like, all right.
And I don't know what came. Honestly, I think I was inspired by wearing the JT ones because like we didn't win, okay? And that goes more into issues with their defense, which I won't get into because it's irrelevant as far as this review. But they're light, and the little zigzag thing that you see on the inside of the shoe there, that actually provides a lot of really helpful stability when it comes to like quick twitchy sort of moves, faking one
Which
way
you have
and
a lot
cutting
of.
another way.
I have heard that you do have a lot of those.
Fast
Mr.
twitch,
Quick
muscle
Twitch over
fibers. Yeah, absolutely. 36-year-old white guy from Australia, synonymous with fast twitch
Quick
fibers.
twitch.
So yeah, absolutely. But it is a light shoe, and it lacks like a wrap around the ankle, but I felt there was some stability there, and I scored a bunch of points tonight, which I don't normally do. So I don't know if that was the shoe itself. I don't know if it was just like being empowered by I felt connected to Jason Tatum. You hear like religious people, right, talk about like, I achieved X, Y, Z because like God was with me, because Jesus was with me. That's how I felt tonight. God was with me. The GOAT was with me. Jason Tatum was with me and carried me to like 12 points or whatever the fuck I had, which is good for me. So 10 out of 10. The shoes are amazing. Go and buy them. I plan to buy the St. Louis colorway that just came out as well because I need them in all shapes and forms.
Of course.
Fantastic. 10 out of 10 is my review. And,
Brilliant.
It's not even an exaggeration. Malcolm Brogdon, we should move on to, because he was much better in game 2 compared to game 1 as far as his impact. We talked about him and Robert Williams checking in halfway through the first, and really like that was it. They came in, and it was the dual impact from those two guys that turned things around. Jackson, like what did you see from Malcolm Brogdon in this one, and did it sort of add, I guess, to your championship expectations? Because we've been talking about, I know that's kind of like a lofty question to throw at you, but we often talk about what we have this year that we didn't have last year. And to see Brogger come in and do what he did and punctuate it with the end of quarter buzzer beater, like that's just so exciting compared to if you think about our playoff run last year. So what do you think of Brogdon in this one?
Just quickly, I think we hit a half-court buzzer beater shot in just about every playoff series we've had for a few years now. I remember JT doing against Philly in the bubble. I think Terry Rozier had a really long-distance one. I'm pretty sure... Was it set? No, never mind. Scrap that point. Anyway, the half-court buzzer beaters in the playoffs. It's kind of like it's becoming our thing. But no, first thing I noticed is the man had a fresh cut going, and normally that can mean either superstar levels coming or total flop coming. And I think Brogdon was the former there.
Fresh cut Brogs.
He's fresh cut Brogs. It's a thing. Not to go back to Derrick White, because you just try and stop me, because it's just. I expected the kind of Brogdon's have been providing what Derrick White's been providing to us, sort of an all-round efficient, game. Whereas Brogdon's become sort of more like just like a bucket getter, much to Joe's chagrin at times, because he can be a little bit like sort of tunnel vision at times with that. But I just think that him coming in as the designated, sixth man, if you like, be it with Rob Williams or just coming in by himself, there's just such a calmness that he brings, to this team. And if you feel like, the game might be getting away from you, I think Brogdon is like one of the first guys that you want to turn to, sort of arrest that or to get that rhythm back. I don't think he's been that deep in the playoffs before. I know we bounced him when he was in Milwaukee, I think in his rookie year or his second year. Did we play against him in the Pacers series, round 1 of 19? I can't remember, but I think he's probably like extra amped, even though you can't tell from his face because he does have a very sort of like deadpan demeanor.
Presidential,
He's probably
if you will.
Presidential, exactly. He's probably like knows that he's on to like this is a real chance for him to make a deep playoff run. So it might be somewhat of a new experience to him, but like you're getting the experience that he has. You're getting the all of his best traits are sort of like coming through at this point, and I think he's just a brilliant addition to this team. And yeah, further to the point, this version of Derrick White versus a player of Brogdon's skill and efficiency and just overall skill set. You insert that into like the team last year, and I definitely don't think we dropped Game 4 to the Warriors at home, and who knows what that would mean after that. So I'm stoked with what I'm seeing from him, and I think he's. I don't know if we'll see him go to another level, but I don't think we have to. Hey, I think what we've got from him right now is sufficient for where this team is as a unit.
Yeah, he has barely made any shots, and he still feels like he's playing pretty well, which is another concern I would have if I was Atlanta. It's like this was one of the most efficient scorers in the NBA, and he's shooting 14% from 3 so far, but he's like distributing, playing defense, getting on the boards, like still playing solid, playing the right way. So it's like, oh, we have another level to go to. So Brogdon's been, I think, playing the right way, but the shots haven't fallen yet. But yeah, he's been good.
So we're not halfway through our run sheet, and we're 46 minutes in.
Yeah,
so we're gonna do a little dancing
speed round
here.
it.
And so let's speed round it a little bit. So Jaylen Brown, just 14 shots in the last game. High amount of turnovers. We're worried about the hand. Is Ramadan a factor, Jackson? Like, do you think?
Well, the most recent game was actually during the day.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So we're grasping at straws here, maybe, because obviously this has been a thing for Jaylen Brown in playoffs past. But I don't know. Do you think the inability to eat is a factor here for Jaylen Brown?
Nah, I thought Ramadan Jaylen was incredible in the first round last year. I think it's definitely the cut. I think it's the hand injury. You can see it every time he dunks the ball real hard, or he'll look down at his hand. I remember
why did he do that?
Yeah, I know. Just because there was a fast break earlier in the game where he just laid it in, and I was just I was stoked when I saw that. I'm like, yeah, good. You don't mess that hand up. But yeah, maybe he had some pent up frustration, or just felt like he owed the crowd something like that. I don't know, but yeah, I'd say he's taking a conscious sort of step back. As to not aggravate the hand, which I wouldn't necessarily, I'm not stoked about. But I mean, if it's less aggressive Jaylen Brown with everybody else on the team, firing, doing maybe not necessarily just doing what is necessary to get through this opening round. For the sake of maybe preserving that hand and not aggravating it further. Not that I think that's possible in a game of NBA basketball. Your hand is going to get, some knocks on it and whatnot. But I think the best thing we can do is just put the Hawks away, 2 more games max. And then, just hopefully the other games, go to into the 6-7 territory, and he can just get that extra rest there. So yeah, I don't think it's anything to be concerned about, but I think he's definitely, holding himself back in some respects because of the hand injury.
Yep. Agreed. I think it was, and with the tricky thing with Jaylen, I think is just sometimes he has a weird game and weird moments. So it's hard. Yeah. It's was that the hand, or is it just a weird Jaylen game?
Yeah. Well, Jaylen Watch will be a point of emphasis for us on the podcast. Hand watch and psyche watch. Just, we know Jaylen at this point. We know what he's capable of in terms of production and lack thereof. So we'll continue to keep you guys updated on our takes there. I want to talk about Sam Hauser, who has just been fantastic as the backup wing. I think we've sort of grown to think about him as this shooting punch off the bench, and yes, he is that, but he actually has been coming in and just doing backup wing shit, an insane amount of awesome defensive possessions where clearly the Hawks are trying to make him the focal point of their attack, and fast feet. Really good shuffling feet, staying in front of his man, contesting every shot. I wish I had a clip to run here on the podcast, but like we've all watched the games. Like we could see, like they many times made a point of attacking Sam Hauser and getting him switched onto Trae Young, and Sammy Buckets just like completely stayed in front of him almost every time. Like I can't think of maybe more than one or two moments where I was like, fuck, like he got burnt there. But everyone gets burnt every now and then on the court, right? We're playing against NBA players here. At no point did he sort of appear to be this sort of weakness or point of vulnerability in the Celtics defense. And I just think that bodes really, really well for his like playoff longevity as we move forward to other series. What do you think about Sammy Buckets, Jake?
You'd think people would learn at some, like after a full season of just like targeting him, that they would realize that he's not a negative defender. Like it's crazy that, he's on the court for a shooting, but he's played 25.8 minutes and has shot 3 threes. He's 1 for 3. And you'd be like, oh, that's not great Sam Hauser minutes, but he's been really good on defense. And I think maybe part of it is like, okay, he's our best shot. And it speaks to more broadly how ridiculous the Celtics are as a defensive unit. It's like, okay, who do I attack? It's not Derrick. It's not Marcus. It's not Jaylen. It's not Jason. It's like Brogdon or Hauser. Of the 8 guys that are playing right now, maybe Horford on a switch. But it's like, great. And so Hauser's your best bet. But right now he's playing really well. And he's done it in isolation all year long, which is a great point, Ben. It's like he's just not a shooter. He cuts off ball. He gets on the boards.
He's rebounding.
His rebounding is good.
Yeah.
His rebounding is good. Being 6'9" is great.
Yeah.
Peyton Pritchard would do some naughty things. I can imagine watching him watch Sam Hauser out there. It's just like, if I am just 5 inches short of the version of you. This is infuriating. But like, yeah, he's just a good wing. It's kind of crazy. And doesn't even need to shoot to be valuable. 15 minutes a game in the first 2 games so far. And the story is the defense. And 1 for 3 from 3, you'd be like, you wish you made or was taking more. I'm also surprised he's not taken more. He hasn't played that much, but like you would think people would be shading away from the other players, leading to the classic Hauser kind of explosions. But that's fine.
I think you will have a game some point at this playoff series. Much like Grant did in Game 7 against the Bucks last year. And like speaking of Grant, like he's definitely taking Grant's minutes, and like I don't have an issue with that in the slightest. Like I'm sure Grant Williams is going to get rolled out to like barrel chest up, Giannis or Embiid or like however it plays out. But you're right, his defense is more than enough. His rebounding is more than sufficient, and he is that 3-point threat. And he's going to have one of those games where he's just like he's 3 or 4 in the first half, and it's going to be that team is just going to shit their pants whoever playing against, and they're going to have to change to keep it in mind. And I believe it's going to happen, and I'm stoked because he's in this playoff rotation, because his play in like the last month of the season was really, really good, and he's earned it. So yeah, Sammy Buckets is a welcome addition for sure.
Jackson, as we try and consolidate our run sheet here as a means of wrapping this thing up, because like I feel like as far as the natural flow of this conversation, like where I could probably talk for another hour, which is crazy because we're talking about one game. So if you're listening now live or later, let us know in the comments like how you feel about that. Like, do you just want us to draw it out and talk for as long as we?
What do you think, Thomas Myers? Are you enjoying the ride?
But in the meantime, to try and make it as succinct as possible, we've got a few things on our run sheet here. So like Horford, he's a series leading plus 36. Marcus Smart, we saw the return of Maestro Marcus Smart in that game, in game 2, where there was a period of time that he was really conducting the orchestra and setting guys up and doing it with this confidence and a little bit of flair as well, which we haven't seen in a while. And back earlier in the season before the ankle injury, we saw him playing like that, and everyone was clearly stating with confidence that he was playing the best basketball of his career. And we just started to see some flashes of that, which is really comforting, I think, in this particular game. Out of Horford, Smart, or anyone else that we haven't mentioned, Jackson, what do you think is the most sort of notable thing that we're yet to bring up?
Horford for sure. I just think, we've talked about like under the radar, and alluded to things like that. Like Horford is just like the ever present, veteran that we need. And, as good as he is on the boards, as good as he is defending the rim, His 3-point shooting, what is it? He's 44% or something like that, something absurd.
I think it's 100%. I'm pretty.
It's
sure
100. Yeah, why not 100%?
At least.
Yeah, I think without Horford in this team, I think you can get by without him. But like over the long term, I think that's he like Smart has obviously. I think Smart is the longest tenured Celtic.
Yeah.
No doubt that like Jaylen and Jason are like the heart and soul of the team and the guys that we look to. But Al Horford, he's just the dad to everyone. And I think if you take the father away, the children are gonna wonder. They're gonna wonder, where's dad? Why isn't he here? What happened to him and stuff? So if you love that analogy, I've got plenty more of them. But I just think Al Horford is. I want if I had to like rank a reason like other than my own potential to gloat over people who who make fun of me for going for the Celtics and all that kind of shit. If I had to like pick one person I want to win a title for more than anyone else, it's Al. It's Al Horford.
No question.
Yeah.
No question. He's cruising right now. He's just cruising. He's like, oh, is it getting a little bit tight? I'll hit a clutch tree. Oh, is it getting a little bit tight? I'll get a clutch block. It's just, and he's playing a lot of minutes, but he's also just, they're chill minutes.
Yeah. It's not playoff hour yet. It's like preseason playoff because of the low caliber of the happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Thomas Myers in the chat. 70th birthday. But mate, we'll keep going forever.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very motivating. It kind of feels like the playoff preseason. Am I wrong? Like we're watching all of our opponents, drop a game in their series, and we may still do that. It just doesn't feel like we just don't have that level of intensity that we're seeing in other series around the league. So, you can kind of forgive Al and Tatum and Jaylen Brown to some degree for all right, Derrick White, do your thing. We'll use our reputation to distract defenders from you. You can do your thing, and maybe in the next series we'll pick it up. But it just, it feels like preseason playoffs or something. It just doesn't feel like the playoffs, even though the Garden crowd has been fantastic and raucous and loud and all those great things. Watching the games, other than in Game 1 where the Hawks were coming back a little bit, I just don't have that sense of urgency and worry and neuroses that I normally have in a playoff series.
Well, I was thinking about it. It's obviously last year was stressful as hell. Yeah. And the year before that was the inverse. Our team was decimated and we had really no chance. But it was we got that cool Tatum 50 ball. The year before that was the bubble. And it was even though we ended up, we swept that series as well, it was still Joel Embiid, we don't have Al Horford, it's Daniel Tice. Sweep. And then the year before that was the Pacers first round. I know that was a sweep too, but that was also a tight and a weird season, just a lot of anxiety around that season in general.
Oh, yeah.
And the year before that was the 7-game Giannis series. So it's this is probably by far the most stress-free season we've had in half a decade. And it's
in
not
the Jays
particularly
era.
close. Yeah.
It's welcome.
Absolutely. Hal, I have to ask you this because I've gone there a few times in the last week or so, and the safe space, touch wood, no one's jinxing anything. It's nothing like that. I'll ask you first, Jackson. Jake, we'll get your take. How often, how many times per day are you we're going to win the fucking championship? How often is that coming past your mind?
Do you know what? I am going to be in Tasmania in June. Jake is aware of this. My flight is the same time as Game 5 and of the finals.
What date is that?
And 16th, 15th, something like that. I've looked it up. I've had this not dream, but this recurring vision that the Celtics will win the banner while I'm on a plane and I won't see a frame of it live. And I don't care. No. That will be fine. I'll as soon as we land, I'll check my phone. Yeah, if winning banner 18 means I don't get to see it live, couldn't give a toss. I will do my part and that will be my thing. So yeah, to answer your question, I do think about the winning the title because I think about that exact same scenario. And I love us to sweep, and I would love to maybe win it in Game 6 so I could watch it live. But no, I get the feeling it's gonna be a closeout game. while
Yeah,
I'm
just-
in the air. So yeah,
Just quickly, I'll get to that. I'll just address 555 in the chat asking about Derrick White. Yeah, we did a ridiculous amount of Derrick White, but that specific D White versus Murray trade is a disaster if you're Atlanta. Let me ask you a question. Would you prefer to have DeJounte Murray for 3 first-round picks or Derrick White, Malcolm Brogdon, and Al Horford for 3 first-round picks? Like,
I think
absolute
you know the
masterclass.
answer.
Not even a
It's a
question.
disaster.
Yeah.
It's an absolute disaster of a trade relative to how well Brad Stevens has done in the last couple of years. But hey, Jackson, like the next day is my 30th hosted in Tasmania, so
Wow.
you're gonna
No
you have to come on down.
You
Dark
might
Mofo.
not. You might not live through the night if it's like 30
I know this,
after a
yeah.
championship.
The next
Yeah.
day,
Man.
yeah.
Yeah.
How could you
Um,
party any harder than a Celtics championship?
Oh,
You'd
boy.
be
A
so
third-
hungover
yeah.
for your own 30th birthday.
Yeah.
But also, what a gift.
Yeah, perfect.
wild,
Well, look,
yeah.
I've
Plenty
been
of
pretty
time to-
good about staying relatively present outside of cheering very hard for the Kings because that's the only team in the West that like I think could actually beat us. And so as far as getting ahead of myself and winning a championship, that's the only kind of way I've been doing it. Otherwise, actually today I was getting like kind of anxious about Joel Embiid just winning the series.
Yeah.
So I'm staying close to ground for now.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll keep checking in on that because it occasionally involuntarily enters my mind, and it's goosebumps followed by like guilt, like how dare you shouldn't be thinking that way, like stop it, like that's
One
just
game
kinda
at a
what's
time.
going- Exactly. And yet it's there. Jake, we'll get close to ending with this. What are your thoughts on Joe Mazzulla's rotation so far in this one? Do you think everyone's had the right distribution of minutes?
Well, it's just been tighter than I thought it might have been in this series. Like it's been 7.5. It's, Jaylen, Jason, Marcus, Derek, Al, Rob, Brogdon. Oh, I can't count. But the only one that's not a core player that's playing right now is Hauser. Like there's no Grant, obviously. There's no Blake. There's no anyone. Hauser's the only like the 7.5, which is kind of surprising considering how kind of dominant they've been so far. But I think that they're pretty acutely aware that if they just like play their guys a lot of minutes, they're going to win this series in 4, maybe 5 games. And that's probably worth more than playing an extra Grant 10 minutes. Maybe that costs you another game. I don't know. It's been slightly tighter than I would think. I'm not particularly worried about Tatum playing 40 minutes and Al playing 32 or 33 just because the Hawk, not every minute's created equal. 39 minutes against the Hawks is a very different 39 minutes against the Miami Heat.
Yes,
So
100%. Yeah.
yeah. So I've liked it so far. I wouldn't mind him if we get a 20-point lead, I hate to make Derek the minutes eater, but just let Derek be the guy. Can we get Blake 10 minutes, 6 minutes against the Hawks? I don't know, just to get Al down a little bit. But and the number one thing that's the best is that Rob's only playing 22 minutes a game so far.
Yeah.
It feels like everybody knows. Like Jackson talking about how terrifying it is every time Rob goes to the ground or something happens to Rob and they cut away. It's 22 minutes. We like that.
And even then, horrifying facial injuries, like you said, Jackson, where the cascading thoughts, is his face as weak as his knees? What's going to happen here? Is this a thing? And then he got up and he was fine, but absolutely terrifying. We'll end with this, Jackson. What was your favorite moment of the game? Because we're gonna keep asking this every game for the rest of the playoffs, and we're gonna cut together a super clip of best moments from each game. So, what was the best moment from this particular game?
Tatum's dunk right at the end, is a nice little exclamation point. But I think we've already talked about it. But obviously, the Derrick White block to Malcolm Brogdon half court buzzer beater. At that point, from what we'd seen of the Hawks, I was like, okay, this is going to be a competitive game. That capped off the 17-3 run, and as soon as that went in, I was just like, this game is done. So the emotion I felt when that shot went in, it's hard to top. That was the best. That was the top one for me.
Yeah, the dual block with Derek and Jason into the Tatum hammer to end it with Tatum yelling into the Garden crowd. Hard to top that one, but obviously you took that. I liked which I mentioned earlier, the Horford Rob just engulfing of Zach Collins. with
bigs.
double bigs with the Missoula emotional outburst on the sideline, which you don't get to see, which I think just kind of encapsulates where everybody is, players, fans, coaches, with this team right now. So that I'll take that.
I love it. Well, look, we're going to clip it. We're going to clip them all and put together the super compilation at the end of the season. The one other thing I'll add before we wrap up is that we are doing our playback stream, our live watch party stream for Game 3. I think it's 9 a.m. Saturday morning here in Australia, so that's going to be 7 p.m. there in Boston. Playback.tv/first to the floor. Come and join us. It's free. Like if you have a streaming
so much fun
service, if you're with a cable provider or League Pass or YouTube TV, you just sign into Playback with that service, and then you're in the watch party with us. Our faces are up on screen, similar to how they are now if you're watching on YouTube. We can bring you up on stage if you want to come up with us and talk to us throughout the game. You can do that. There's a live chat as well. It's so much fun. So come and join us if you haven't signed up to our Playback room already. It's a really good time. We're going to be doing that for Game 3 there in Atlanta. That is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for joining us. Be advised, like I said, I've got this in my outro notes. I've just buried the lead here. We are firing up our Playback room for the Friday night Game 3 there.
It's super fun. And this is a perfect low-stress game. Come on down. You probably convinced me and Ben to start drinking at 9 a.m. in Australia.
I'm going to.
It's the
playoffs.
The best kind of drinking. Yeah,
exactly. So let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a really nice crowd there for Game 1 as well, so hopefully we can double down on that and add a few more people there for Game 3, because it really is. It's just so much fun. Of all the things we do on this pod, those live watch parties I think is probably the most fun. We'll also have another podcast out either Saturday or Sunday, so make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast feed if you're not already on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and leave us a nice review there if you can. That sort of stuff really helps us out with the algorithm. If you leave a review, a 5-star rating, that's going to make the pod show up on other people's feeds and bring them to our audience. The more audience members we have, the more clout we have when we reach out to guests and in players and stuff like that and try and get them on the show. So please help us out there while you can. Jackson, Joe, love your work, guys. Until next time, go Celtics.
Likewise.